So I'm gonna go through with this. So I've actually been able to meet with Linda Stein and get to know her as a person as well as an artist. And this is her studio in Tribeca right here. And it's very interactive. She prefers actually the interaction within her art, which I have always found to be extremely, I would say, inspiring as an artist myself. Just the tangibility and being able to touch the art, I feel like I can connect to it more. So her art has always been something that I personally have really enjoyed. And in probably about 2016 or so, the Fluidity of Gender series was something that I really kind of focused on. And within that, she deals with the non-binary. So in meeting her, I was able to really, one-on-one with the artist, learn more and more about it. And she picks up the Michelangelo-inspired torsos, which is what her inspiration was. And if you look at it from the frontal view, it's kind of feminine in detail. And then if you turn it around, it has more of like rounded shoulders. So it looks very masculine. So she combines these two identities into one, making it this non-binary figure. So within my presentation, I went through, I'm not really so much going to give more of like a historical background on her. I will touch a little bit on it, but the majority of my slides deal with the editing in which I want to do in looking at her work on, well, actually her page. So this is Linda Stein. You saw her in the first screen as well, but she's an American feminist contemporary artist. She's also an activist, an educator, a performer, and writer. Her work mostly focuses on themes of protection and otherness, and she's also the founding president of the nonprofit corporation Have Art Will Travel, which I'll touch on a little bit as well. So she lives in New York. She was born and raised in New York as well, and yeah. So I made this little collage of her work to kind of, besides the first screen so that you can see. So I have all the pictures here. So right here, this is Defender. This is part of the Fluidity and Gender series. And in meeting her, she was able to really kind of describe how she goes about doing her art. So her art is mostly found art. And she'll go to garage sales and pick up, there's one little, there's one of the Fluidity of Gender pieces where there's a lot of like police badges that she had picked up from her garage sale. This is part of the Displaced series, and all of these little things she had collected as well. This is one of her earlier works. This is the abstract work that she moved from the abstract to the figurative after 9/11, which I'll go over a little bit. This is part of what I do want to edit on her page, which is part of the profile series. So this profile series was done in the 1970s, and this was the original portion of what she started as an artist. Up there, that should look familiar, up on the top left, or your right, which is The Night at E652, which was part of the exhibition that was here. And this is the 10 Heroes from the Holocaust Fierce Females series that she did. And when she first started out in New York, she did calligraphy for Tiffany's and Cartier. And this is a whole bunch of the invitations for weddings that she put together, and she made her figurative form out of that as well. So this is kind of just a little collage of mixed media that she did. So the first edit that I would like to do is if you look at other artists' web pages, which at this point is where I would need to get to.
I think if you go to the meetup page, you were just going to go to Chicago, right?
So just.
Yeah. all the ways. Let's see. Thought we had the.
I thought it was up here.
Yeah,
You can also probably just go to Wikipedia and do the Chicago.
Okay, so if you go to other feminist artist sites, you'll see that the comparison between something like this, okay, where there's a lot of imagery, which for being a visual artist, right, it's nice, especially if somebody that doesn't have any kind of insight into their artwork is able to see right on the page. So if I go to, this is the one thing that I noticed about Linda Stein. It's very text driven, and you can see that there's no images whatsoever on her site, on her page. So going from something of this, where at least you can even see who she is, that's one of the changes that I would like to do. So I went through each page on here, and I went into Photoshop and I kind of added this. So the additions for this section would be adding the image of Linda Stein above where her information is. And in addition to that, I would also like to add notable work, which the fluidity of gender and Holocaust heroes, fierce females are her two biggest, and the movement in which she identifies with, which is contemporary art and also feminist art. So those are the two. And that picture right here is the one that's on the front, and that's the one that I would like to use for the edit. In the first paragraph, well, the first section of her as an artist, it talks here about how she works primarily in abstract and figurative. She doesn't necessarily work too much anymore in abstract because that was something that before 9/11 is what she focused on, and this is a piece of that. So this is the xylo twist, and this is where I would like to incorporate that because most visitors that would be visiting this page knowing her would know her as the figurative artist, but I think it's important to put that in there. So Linda Stein's background going from abstract to figurative was that she was displaced. So 9/11 happened, she got a knock on the door from a police officer in her Tribeca studio, which is underground, and they told her, you got to get out of here. Like, she didn't even have time to pack anything up or anything, and her coworkers walked out, and she told me vividly that she remembers walking out and just seeing white everywhere, and she looked, and it looked like there was like this big white cloud hovering above the World Trade Center, which you could see from her studio, and it was, you know, the buildings that had been attacked. So in running, yeah, she turned around to see why people were throwing furniture out of the World Trade Center, and she looked closer and it was people jumping. So it was very traumatic within just the knock from the police officer to within seconds of walking out and seeing this. So it was very traumatic, and she was displaced from her studio and the area where she lived for about 8 months, and she had to live up on the, I think, 84th Street. So compared to where she is in the lower portion of the city, it was, you know, something that was very traumatic for her. So she was then at that point working with abstract art, and then she moved to figurative. And the figurative movement happened because of protection. She felt like there needed to be this figurative role of protection, and including in that this otherness and non-binary. So that's how she moved. So I think that for this section, it's extremely important to add that abstract art to it, since most people only know her as a figurative artist. So I had mentioned before, she started her career in a calligraphy service, working for Tiffany's and Cartier. And this is the image that I would like to add to this section. And this is the title, obviously. So just a lot of, for her page is either mostly imagery, but also some other stuff. So for her artistic career, in looking at other works of feminist artists, like I had mentioned, there is a lot more visual aid. So for each one, I would like to go through and add a little image that the visitor then could click on. Oops, hold on mine. If you click on it, it gets larger so that you can view it on a larger scale. And I specifically went through for each of her series, and I added the pieces that are probably the most recognized for that series. The other addition that I would like to do is here, I would like to get rid of earlier work and keep it as blades and so on. But then underneath of it right here, I would like to add the profile series, which is from the 1970s. So it will go from the 1970s to the 1990s. And this is the profile series, which I showed you before. It's profile palette. And then I would like to create a new Wikipedia page, and this is for the nonprofit company that she's the founder of, which is Have Art Will Travel. And I feel that it's very important for this to have its own page because there's so much information on it, and that would be, you know, something that now I know how to do. For further reading on her page, I would like to include the Holocaust Heroes Fierce Females book, and that was published in 2016. So it would go in between these two. For the external links, these are the external links that she has right now. So Have Art Will Travel is there, but there is no Wikipedia site for it. So that's what I was talking about before with including that as a new page. But in addition, I would like to add, which is the title of this presentation, the Social Justice Art Education Curricular Encounters with Linda Stein's Art, and have a link here for it. And what this is kind of like an online place that anyone could go to. And it's a participatory curricular activity that you can go, and it tells you exactly what to do and how to encounter her artwork. So this is very important to have in here, and that's not in here currently. So that would be, you know, an addition that I think is needed. I think that's it.
All right.
So essentially for her, it's just the added imagery, and then also the couple of links, the book, and that's it.
Excellent, excellent. I got one hand.